The Trump administration is radically reshaping America and the world around it. In the inaugural Vantage Point essay from Australia Institute Press, Dr. Emma Shortis examines Trump's grim vision for America and the future of the Australia-US alliance. Pre-order your copy of After America, Australia and the New World Order, or become a Foundation subscriber to Vantage Point at australiainstitute.org.au/store or via the link in the show notes. Hello and welcome to Dollars and Cents, the Australian Institute podcast where we're talking about just what the hell is going on in the economy. I'm Elinor Johnston-Leake, the senior content producer here at the Australia Institute, and as always, I'm talking to our chief economist, Greg Jericho. Hello, Greg.
Hello, Elinor.
How are you today?
I'm very good.
Very good. That's
Ripping
good to hear.
and vibrant and full of vim and vigor, and you know, we got a long weekend coming up, so there's plenty to look forward to.
It's not because of the leaders' debate that you watched last night?
Oh, yeah, that left me just energized beyond belief. I couldn't get to sleep. I was just, all the things that were going through my head about all the ideas and policies and incredible wonders that were revealed to me.
Yeah, I mean,
Am I being too cynical?
Well, yeah, heavy dose of sarcasm, I guess, there. But I didn't watch it because I knew that, I'd be here today to talk to you. And
you have a life.
There is also that. But, Greg, were there actually ideas there?
Look, I am being cynical
least?
because actually, as far as debates go, this actually wasn't that bad of a one. I think David Spears did a pretty good job of moderating. There was the standard dopey questions that you get from journalists sort of worrying about debt and deficit and how are we going to get the budget under control. It's like, it has this implicit sense that we should be in a surplus now, which if we're in a surplus now, probably the economy would be in a recession. So maybe don't think, paint that as being a good thing. But he also asked, good questions such as why aren't either of you guys doing anything about capital gains tax or negative gearing?
Yeah.
That seems like a thing. And then that's probably one of the sort of the bigger things that will come out of it, because Peter Dutton was alleging that the government commissioned Treasury to do modelling on negative gearing. They didn't really. Treasury just did some stuff on negative gearing because Treasury is actually a department that investigates stuff. There's no policy for getting rid of negative gearing or capital gains tax, alas, except by the Greens, who are pushing it smartly. He also was, asked, okay, we're talking about house price. What about renters? Renters seem pretty stuffed at the moment. Are you guys in favour of changing rental laws and having, longer rental contracts and things like that? And both were pretty quick to say, oh, that's a matter for the states. And
okay. Yeah.
And Albanese was like, oh, we've done these things that have made it better. And everyone's like, really? But a lot of defaulting to the states. Other big news, Peter Dutton. I mean, it's incredible. It's 2025. Peter Dutton could not bring himself to say that climate change is real and causing, weather events and things like that.
I'll leave others to.
What do you think? You're a Queenslander?
I'll let scientists and others pass that judgment. But
really? You're not willing to say this is climate change happening right now?
Well, as the Prime Minister refused to do the other day to make comment in this regard as well, I don't know, David, because I'm not a scientist and I can't tell you whether the temperature has risen in Thargomindah as a result of climate change or that the water levels are up in Thargomindah's latest flood.
It was all very had to hedge and go, well, I'm not a scientist. It's like, yeah, but the science is pretty clearly established and you are a thinking person. Surely you have taken a position on this. I mean, I'm not a chemist, but I understand when a chemist tells me that something is poisonous.
Yeah, he's not an economist
I don't
either.
go, well, I don't know about that. I'm not a chemist, so it's like I can. If someone asks me, is that poison? I can say, well, the chemist said it's poisonous, so yeah, it's poison. Yeah,
I'm not a doctor, but I'll trust my doctor.
Yeah, it was like we were watching Q&A back in 2010, and everyone was saying, well, I'm not a climate scientist. So he couldn't say that. So Jane Hume this morning came out and says, well, I believe in climate change, and so does Peter Dutton. He really does, and because when someone else has to come out and tell people that you actually do believe in something, that's really good. Other things to come out, look, not a great deal. There were no there was nothing in there that would have anyone really changing their vote. Peter Dutton, again, really stumbled over the whole issue about is Russia bringing bases to Indonesia, because he kind of went way over the top on Monday, suggesting that the Indonesian president had put out a report and put out a statement when the Indonesian president had not at all. And so he was like, oh, I misspoke. I was just referring to reports that reported Indonesian government said this. And it's like, no, they weren't even that, which kind of goes to just how poor Peter Dutton is when he gets outside of his narrow scope of comfort, and he starts saying things because he thinks they'll sound good, or he's used to saying them on 2GB or Sky After Dark or something, and he gets away with it there. Whereas now you say in a press conference during election campaign, and every word is picked over very closely, and he's done a bit of that this election campaign where he's just not good.
Do you think that the sort of changing geopolitical landscape and the threat of Trump is sort of having an impact on that as well?
Yeah, I mean, because Dutton bet the farm on Trump being good for them, and people thinking, oh yeah, we need a bit of a shake-up like Trump, because I think he was kind of hoping that Trump would be like in the first Trump government, where basically he gets elected, says a lot, doesn't do much, and plays a lot of golf, and everyone goes, oh yeah, we need a Trump. Instead, he's gone full fascist, put tariffs on everybody, and is deporting, US citizens and
kidnapping them off the streets and sending them to El Salvador.
And doing a lot of stuff that people are like, yeah, we don't want that here. Especially, things like the cuts to all government services and things like that. And so that blew up in his face. And so last night, David Spears did ask both leaders if they trusted Donald Trump.
Question.
Well, we trust the United States, and I don't know the president. I've not met him. The Prime Minister obviously has been able to.
So you're not willing to say you trust Donald Trump?
I don't know Donald Trump is my point.
Do you trust Donald Trump?
Yeah, I have no reason not to.
And Albanese said, oh, look, well, he's done nothing to make me think I shouldn't trust him. In all the conversations I've had with him so far, he's backed up what he said he would do. It was one of those things where there is no way Albanese could come out and say, no, I don't just trust Donald Trump. I mean, if you say that, suddenly that is a major story and it's a diplomatic incident. The Australian Prime Minister saying you can't trust the US president that's big. And no leader's going to say it. And he was also asked, do you trust, the Chinese leader? And again, he said, I've got no reason not to. Because again, it's an Australian Prime Minister going to say, no, I don't trust the Chinese government. It's like, okay, they're our biggest trading partner, and now we're stuffed. Whereas Peter Dutton took a slightly different tack where he's going, oh, I've never met him. So I don't know. It was like, Donald Trump, no, don't know who he is.
I'll suss out the vibes when we get in.
So it suddenly went to, I don't know Donald Trump, so I can't say one way or the other. It was so bad, because also in the next sort of minute he was talking about how, if we were in power, because we've got such good relationships with the US government and the Trump administration, we'd be able to get a better deal. I'm like, but you just said you don't know this guy, and I've never met him, and who is this Donald Trump you speak of?
So all in all, wasn't worth me watching the debate, you think?
No, you should have just read our live blog, where it was me, Amy, and Matt Grudenoff were live blogging away, fact-checking. I mean, there were the usual lies. Peter Dutton keeps saying that groceries have gone up by 30% in the past 3 years, which is, more than double what they actually have gone up. They've gone up about 12%, but he just keeps saying 30%, even though it's a lie. He says it because he would hope that Albanese will pick him up on it, and then it becomes a fight over grocery prices and inflation. And Peter Dutton wants to talk about that because he'll say, oh, well, this is what it feels like for families, or, you're relying on the official statistics, whereas I'm relying on the reality of people's lives and their living standards. It's all that kind of crap. So other than that, it was, a decent debate, and everyone will quickly forget it as soon as we hit Easter, and I doubt the ratings for it were even that good because I think overall very few people have really started paying attention yet.
Yeah.
And probably won't until the last week after Anzac Day.
Well, I am glad that, as you said, negative gearing was brought up because, up until now, I've sort of been a bit confused about when we were going to be getting any sort of real housing policy from either of the major parties. It's one of the biggest issues facing Australians at the moment, if not the biggest. I'm sure it's going to swing a lot of votes. And as we talked about a few episodes ago, you crunched the numbers and found that even if someone in Sydney earning the average full-time male wage had saved 15% each year over the last decade, they would actually be around $1,000 further away from buying their average mortgage than when they started in 2015.
It's kind of so bad when you say it out loud.
Yeah,
it really
it's really
sounds
bad.
terrible.
But we've
Because
got
it is
some
terrible.
actual policies, Greg.
We do?
We
Woohoo,
do.
woohoo.
Now, any new listeners out there, we talk a lot about how I'm never going to be able to afford a house, which really is great for me and my mental health. Are either of these housing policies going to help me, Greg? Or are you about to crush my dreams again?
Look, I'm very good at crushing dreams.
Especially mine.
Look, let's take a step back. Last weekend, both Labor and the Liberal Party had their campaign launches, and interestingly, this is really early in the campaign, sort of in the past half dozen or so election campaigns, the campaign launches have come right in the last week because they want they think, okay, people have started paying attention. Now we'll hit them with the big thing, where I think both of them were kind of like, there's a bit of a nothing going on. We better actually come out with something. Weirdly, they were on the same day, which was odd, an odd decision, especially by the Liberal Party, because Labor had said they would have theirs on the Sunday, and then the Liberals said, yeah, we'll do that too. And it's like, aren't you trying to get clean air and things? But anyway, and also weirdly, a bit like when Hollywood brings out A Bug's Life and then Ants or Armageddon and then Deep Impact, all movies within the same sort of couple months. They both also not only had campaign launches on the same day, housing policy were the big policy launches in that thing.
Yeah.
So what did we have? We had the Liberal Party saying...
What were they proposing?
They're proposing that for the first 5 years, up to a certain amount, about 625,000, I'm thinking offhand, you can deduct the interest payments that you make on your home loan.
Okay.
So if you've got a home loan, you're a first home buyer, it's only for first home buyers, and you earn under a certain amount, and the threshold is pretty generous. It's 250,000 if you're a couple. So that's if you're a couple earning under 250,000, that's pretty much everyone.
Yeah.
There's not many who are above that. You can deduct your interest repayments, and this is kind of a bit like, you're a little bit like negative gearing in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, so I still have to save up for a mortgage?
Yes, this is the key thing. So really what it is doing is it is giving a massive tax break to people who could already afford a home.
Right.
So,
okay.
Yeah, not good. And what it's also doing is enabling those people to probably bid a bit higher than they would. So again, putting pressure on demand. What they're also doing, and this isn't particularly new, but they're going to allow first-home buyers to access up to $50,000 of their super to put into a housing deposit. That, again, is just going to juice up demand. Also, who's it going to benefit? People who've got a shit ton of super, which is the richest people who already probably could afford a deposit. The median balance for women in their late 30s in their super balance is about 55,000.
Yeah.
So this is basically saying, look, you could eat all your super.
Don't worry about, later when you might need it.
Yeah, and the libs are like, oh no, we're not destroying super because when you do sell your house, if you do sell it, you have to put back any of the amount you took out of your super back in from the proceeds of the sale, which... Yeah, look, again, the upshot is it's just juicing up demand. Going to raise prices will do nothing for affordability. So that's the Liberal Party.
Okay, so tax break for people who could already afford houses probably will juice up demand, will probably increase prices.
Yep. And
No,
will not
okay.
do anything for you, unfortunately.
Right,
Because
okay.
you couldn't afford a home
No.
yet, and this is not going to help you
It
to
might
afford the home.
make things harder for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So,
Okay,
yeah,
so
lose-lose.
right, and then on the other side,
Then
what
we've got Labor.
what's
Now,
Labor's
Labor have
proposal?
decided, okay, we know getting a deposit is tough, and if you haven't unable to put up 20% of your deposit, you got to pay mortgage insurance, which adds to the whole cost and everything. So what they're saying is, if you're a first home buyer, and it doesn't matter what you earn, if you're a first home buyer, you only have to put up 5% of your deposit, and the government will, in a sense, guarantee your loan, in a sense, so you don't need to pay mortgage insurance.
Okay.
Okay.
That sounds okay.
It sounds okay,
Yeah.
except what does that mean? It means more people are going to be able to now bid for a house, which means we're just juicing up demand. It's basically a bit of a fancy first home owners grant, because
Yeah.
that's basically what first home owners grants do. Is they go, right, you haven't got enough to deposit, so we'll give you enough for a deposit so you don't have to worry about mortgage insurance. What this is doing is saying, we won't give you the money, we'll just say we'll guarantee you, so you only need 5%. What it also means is, okay, it sounds great. Oh, I only need 5%. That means you're taking out a loan worth 95% of the house,
Yeah.
which means you're going to have a big loan, bigger than if you only had 20%. So, yeah, it's great. The deposit hurdle is lower. The repayments are going to be bigger. You're probably going to have to, definitely be a 30-year loan rather than a 25-year one, although 30 years are pretty much common now. Back in the day, they used to be 20, which is even sort of kind of more bitter. But the upshot is it'll increase demand. Now, the government is saying it won't substantially increase prices, and everyone's like, what do you mean by substantially? And, they're like, well, Treasury modelling says it won't substantially increase. And I'm like, yeah, well, I think it might.
But it might still a bit.
Yeah, so there's that. But 3 policies that are terrible. So we got the super, we got the tax deductible loans, and the 5% deposit.
Yep.
So those 3 are bad. But Labor also had another policy, which is actually good.
Oh, what?
Yay! Basically, because they kind of, well, we won't say they are stealing an idea from us, but let's just say we here at the Australia Institute have said for a very long time that government should actually build some frickin' homes.
Well, if we have a shortage of houses and we want a bigger supply of houses, and just hang on for a second, this might get technical. Yeah. But we could build houses.
New ones.
And
rent them to people.
And rent them or sell them to people.
Would this work?
Well, it would increase the supply of housing, it would make housing cheaper, and it would make rents cheaper.
Oh, wow, this is crazy talk.
Huzzah, that's what they're going to do. They're putting in
Yep.
$10 billion to work with the states to build 100,000 homes over about 8 years.
Okay.
So about 10, 12,000 a year, which is fairly decent. Now, there's been a lot of criticism saying, $10 billion for 100,000 homes. So what, you reckon it's going to cost $100,000 to build each home? It's like, no, that's not what they're doing. What they're going to do is partner with the state governments and maybe even some property developers. It's basically mimicking a scheme that is already operating in South Australia. But it's basically, the upshot is the government deciding, you know what, we can borrow money to build houses and then sell them to first home buyers, and that's probably a good thing to do. And we're like, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So good policy, and that will definitely help. Now, again, the damage of the past 25 years is so great that it's not going to have a massive impact. That's because this thing is going to take a long time to undo, but at least this is a good start, and it's something that we would hope continues to get built on. It's not public housing per se, but it
Okay.
is the public sector building housing and then selling it at prices that are, one, it's only for first-home buyers, so it's first-home buyers bidding with other first-home buyers in a
Yeah.
sense. So that gets rid of all the investor pressure and everything like that. And also, the houses are going to be such that, we're not talking, there'll be houses, there'll be apartments, there'll be a mixture. And it's a case, there is a bit of I won't say a lottery to get the house, but it's something that at least sets it outside the sort of the actual housing market. And
Okay.
that's a really good policy, really something that we have long been calling for here. One of the concerns from people was that, have we got enough builders to actually build all these houses? And this goes to another thing that certainly Richard Dennis and I have been sort of banging on a bit, is that what is happening now is we have a situation where, we do have a skill shortage in construction. So why are we continually approving new coal and gas mine extensions that are taking construction workers away from building homes and building infrastructure around residences, and instead going off and building fossil fuel emitting mines? It's a case, government's always like saying, improve this mine because it's going to create jobs. And it's like, no, what it's doing is taking jobs away from people who could be building these homes. So maybe not only stop approving coal and gas mines because they're terrible for the environment, but also they're bad for housing. So that's something we've certainly been calling for. But as I say, this housing policy, at least the building 100,000 homes, is good. And, it does at least open the possibility that there might be a first home for you somewhere lurking in the
out
future.
there. Oh
So,
my gosh.
If that policy also counters all the other bad things.
Yeah, well, speaking of all the other bad things, I feel like there's still, a couple of big elephants in the room that aren't being addressed when it comes to housing.
Yeah, capital gains tax.
Yeah.
We're not going to touch that.
Yeah.
They both were very quick last night in the debate. We're not touching that, not touching negative gearing. They both came up with pretty spurious reasoning, suggesting that if we got rid of negative gearing, it's going to cause rents to rise. This is not true. In the 80s, we've actually got proof. In the 80s, Hawke and Keating got rid of negative gearing for a couple of years. In some cities, rents went up. In others, they didn't. It all depends on what was the supply like at the time in the rental market. It's got nothing to do with negative gearing. Capital gains tax is the same. All it is doing right now is juicing up demand for investors, and the belief that this will get rid of, it'll cause rental prices to go because investors won't be buying homes. It's like, well, then who will be buying homes? People who live in them.
Thumbs and sitting in front of a podcast mic.
It's this line that, if investors don't buy the homes, then there'll be nowhere for renters to live. It's like, that's because people who are renting are now buying those homes and living in them. So and the reality as well is that negative gearing and capital gains tax advantages are mostly being done by investors who are buying established homes, not, I'm going to build a home and then rent it out so I can get all that negative gearing goodness. It's like, nah, that's no account is telling you to do that. They're telling, find a fairly newish home, buy that, rent that out. Don't build. What are you, crazy? So it's not helping supply. It's not great for renters. So yeah.
So until we address those two things, it seems like all of these sort of tinkering around the edges policies, are they going to do much? Really?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say the 100,000 new homes is tinkering. I think that's really good. But one of the interesting things this week is on Q&A, we also had sort of both the housing ministers on it, and also our own Richard Dennis was there. So they were talking a lot about housing, and Richard Dennis made it quite clear to everybody that the only way in which things can improve is if your wage or income goes up faster than house price. If that doesn't happen, then all this is just talk.
This is not complicated. As long as house prices are rising faster than wages, you can't catch up. And I'm sorry, but it's a cruel hoax for people to tell you that a tax break here or something or other there is going to help.
And Michael Sukkar, the opposition housing and homelessness spokesman, kind of didn't really buy into that. However, since then, he has said that, and he said it in the National Press Club debate that he had with Claire O'Neill on Wednesday.
You absolutely want wages growing more quickly than house prices. There's no doubt about it. And what we need to see is a period where wages growth sustainably outpaces house price growth. That's the only way that you're going to end up in a situation where it's more affordable to own a home.
And that's great to hear. The interesting thing is Peter Dutton was asked this in press conferences and he completely dodged the question, did not address it. They're saying he literally was asked, Michael Sukkar said this, do you think wages go up faster than house prices? And he just sort of blabbed away and ends with, we want the value of your home to go up. It would be terrible if it goes down. And it's just like, okay.
Yeah.
And that came out because on Monday in press conference, he was talking about, we want house prices to rise. And everyone's like, what?
Do you expect median house prices to drop?
Well, as we've said, I want to see house prices go up, but we need more supply into the market.
You're here, we're talking about housing, and you were saying you want house prices to rise. And it's
so
just,
can you guys coordinate your messaging?
Yeah. And Anthony Albanese was asked the same thing, and he pointed out, look, historically, house prices in Australia do keep going up.
Yep, they sure do.
And he didn't sort of say one way or the other, but it's this thing of at least there is this acknowledgement from the Liberal Party, even if it is just Michael Sukkar, that yes, Richard Dennis is right, and everyone else is right. If you want housing affordability to improve, wages and income has to rise faster than house price. The problem is when you've had 25 years of the opposite occurring, that means there's a lot of undoing to occur, and it's a slow process. So hopefully things like building $100,000 homes will help Elinor one day.
Okay, well, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see if anyone else can come up with some better housing policy, I guess, as well.
I mean, we should note the Greens have basically said, yep, let's gut capital gains tax and negative gearing. There's a little bit of grandfathering, limiting negative gearing to one home. They're actually got some sensible policies, and everyone's sort of Labor and Liberal both trying to claim that they're off with the fairies.
All right. Well, hopefully something comes up in the next week, and then we can talk about it on the next episode.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is we're entering a very weird phase because next week is a 3-day week for everybody.
Yeah.
Governments know, and political parties know, no one pays attention while you're on public holiday. The last thing anyone wants to do is think about politics. We might see them crop up at the Easter show in Sydney, and everyone will be like, can you just please go away? I'm at the show and I want to have fun. Yeah. So it's going to be an interesting thing to see what happens, and given as well that there has been a bit of a dearth of actual real sort of policy, we here at the Australian Institute are going to try and push a few ideas, so we might be able to talk about that next week as well. If you want to find any of the research to all the things we've been talking about, please go to the links in the show notes. Thank you all for listening. We will be back with another episode of Dollars and Cents next week, but this episode of Dollars and Cents was recorded on the 17th of April, and some things may have changed. It'd be nice if there's some housing policy changes, but no.
All right.
There probably will be some Trump tariff changes. We're not mentioning Trump's tariffs.
Oh, gosh. No, save that.
If you want any more information about all these policies and also about the election campaign, please, the best thing you can do is tune in to Amy Ramikis' live blog, which is on our website. It covers everything, and we are fact-checking everything that has been said, providing more context, more details, more research. You will just be filled to the brim with knowledge if you get there, and also Amy's wonderful snark just cuts through all the crap. So please do read that. Also, if you want to find more about the housing policy and also what's going wrong with the housing market, have a read of my Guardian column. It's on the Guardian Australia website. Music, as always, is by Blue Dot Sessions. Everyone, have a great Easter weekend. Please be safe out there. It is always a bit of a dangerous time if you are travelling, so please be safe. And we will see you all next week.
See ya.